Howdy folks, and welcome to the Daily Coin. My name is Rory, and today is Thursday, October the 29th, 2015, and I have the great honor of speaking with Mr. Bill Murphy from Coin.org and La Metropole Cafe. How you doing today, Bill?
Great to be here, Rory. Thanks very much for having me.
Well, we've got a lot to talk about, so let's just jump right in. What do you say?
Sounds good to me. We can start now.
Do you see any signs of improvement? I mean, do you see things changing? I mean, I know that silver's moved up a little bit.
Oh, it's moved up, and they put it right back in the crap can on yesterday after the Fed announcement. It dropped 75 cents. They've had it in a lockdown right above 16 and below 16, and then it broke out. Actually broke out. It lasted a half hour. Half hour, and then they took it right back below 16. And they seem to be petrified of silver taking that level out, and they keep stopping it.
Yeah. It seems like 16 is some kind of line in the sand.
It is
for these guys.
It is, and now the open interest is going way up again, as it did in mid-year, and when it went to an all-time high.
Yeah.
And they're doing the same thing in the gold market. That open interest on the COMEX is going up to the same price as when gold was at 1650. So in other words, they're bombing the paper market, just trying to keep gold and silver in check.
Can they go on forever, though? That's the question. I mean, with China's already announced that they're going to have their own pricing mechanism. I mean, does that play any part in our future? I mean, we know that the cartel, the COMEX cartel, and the bullion banks, they have a lockdown on gold and silver pricing right now, period. But will the Chinese be able to break that once they start setting prices for both gold and silver?
Well, eventually this thing is going to blow up, and there's no doubt about it. The question is when. It's gone on longer than we thought it would right now. I mean, here we are into the prime season, and gold and silver are nowhere. And I say the situation is hopeless until the physical market overpowers what I call the gold cartel, whether it comes from China, India, other sources. And it's going to happen. And when it does this time, the moves up will be historic because they have gone to such an effort to influence the price, and eventually they're going to run out of enough physical supply to get the job done.
And speaking of physical supply, I mean, I was just before we started the show, I was telling you that I have talked to a couple of the mining companies that are here, and well, not the mining companies, but I've spoken with Spiros over at Great Panther, and then I spoke with Derek over at First Mining Finance, and they actually are a holding company of mining companies, and there aren't any mines out there. So in a couple of years, 3 years, unless some of these juniors and speculators that are out there right now, unless they start coming on and come into full production and become an actual mine, where's the supply going to come from?
Well, that's the question. And we keep thinking that this gold cartel, as I would call it, or JP Morgan, and the other silver shorts are just going to hit the wall at some time. And they press their case for over and over. And at some point, they're going to go through all that supply. Well, everybody knows about the tightness in the silver coin market right now. And it's not quite the same in the wholesale market. But it's ridiculous that you could have such premiums and delays of delivery and so on, and yet the price doesn't go anywhere. They've just got it in a lockdown situation. And yes, they're going to hit the wall. At some point, these fundamentals will kick in. And once they lose control of it, the price rise this time is likely to be historic.
Well, we can only hope. I mean, it should be. I mean, because right now, I mean, if you just take an inflation adjustment from 1980, when silver, when it ran up, I mean, if you just take that to today, how can something be a third of its cost 35 years later with 35 years worth of inflation? That doesn't make any sense at all to me. So,
Well, it's the same. It's the same with gold. Even CNBC's Rick Santelli said the other day that gold should be at least $2,500 an ounce if it had kept pace with inflation. So, and that's without all the other things that have occurred. That would be
right.
just the normal inflation thing. So, this is how much what do you call this gold cartel? A combination of the bullion banks like Morgan and the Fed, the Treasury, the BIS, and other central banks. This is the effort they've made to keep the prices in lockdown.
With all the geopolitical issues that we're faced with right now, I mean, with the situation in Syria, the Middle East, the saber rattling between the U.S. and Russia. I mean, do you see how is it that these issues, just in those issues alone, make gold more of a safe haven play? Right? I mean, is
Well, they do, but things are really it's got to materially affect things for it to mean anything because these things you hear about something and then it goes away. Nothing's ever escalated to the point where it's changing people's lives, especially in the Western world right now. In other words, is it all potential to be incredibly chaotic? Absolutely. But, you've got a flare up, tension builds up, and then you don't hear about it again. So it's when it goes to that next level when the fear trade kicks in and people want to go to gold and silver for protection.
is it going to be there though? That's the question that I keep asking. I mean, because we've had we've had 4 years of these massive suppression, price suppression of both gold and silver, to the point of just like what we were just discussing, that's creating all of this stress and strain within the mining industry. So now we don't even have any backfill for the product. So in China and India both have these massive solar programs, which they're taking up silver left and right just for those programs.
It's a scary thing that just came up with. There's somebody at this conference that's getting to where aluminum is going to replace silver in the solar industry. Now, I don't know if that's going to be too easy to do or what. And I know David Morgan has said it's probably going to take a couple of years and there's different ramifications. So I'm not an expert, want to get into that, but it's something you may want to look into while you're here because uh, that could be a somewhat of a blow to the silver market down the road. They said it's going to take time for that to occur, and by then silver prices should be taking off due to investment demand. But that certainly would be a factor to get on the radar screen.
Well, I mean, in some of the electronic companies, I mean, I was at one of the sessions here at the New Orleans Investment Conference, and they were talking about Samsung was making a play on a mine. So if you've got electronics companies that are dependent upon silver, buying silver mines, I mean,
Yeah, they were going directly to the source. That's an
right,
unusual thing that they're cutting out the middle guy, and that shows you how concerned they are to get silver.
exactly.
So you're right, and that's you know the play for silver is incredible. I mean, even if there is some solar issues, but I don't want to talk about that too much because I don't know much about it. But the investment demand for silver is, we already know how strong it is now. I mean, it's on allocation if you can get it in
Right.
many places. So when things start to move to the upside, that's really going to kick in.
Can they keep it going forever though? Is the
It's up to
that's the question.
it's up to the physical market. I mean, as I said, this what we're dealing with goes on. It goes on and on. I mean, every time it looks like it's going to change, the gold cartel attacks. The speculators get long, and then but when they attack, then they get forced out, and they cover it. Just we go through the same drill over and over again. And I don't know anybody. Most of the people in our camp thought this fall would be fantastic for gold and silver. Once we got into the October period, September, October, and remember, this is the prime season also for gold and
Right.
silver to go up. And it started to move, and they just, said no mas. And yesterday went right back in the tank again. Silver, gold's below 1150, that key level again.
Yeah. And 1150 and 16 for silver.
That's
I
right.
mean, it's
And it's a very,
incredible.
it's aggravating to
It
put it
is
mild.
aggravating. And India, there's, and I'm not sure how familiar you are with this, but they've been trying to push some paper gold in India and do a gold bond and all this
Yeah,
other stuff.
exactly. They want the gold to be deposited to the government, and it's a long story, and nobody knows what's really behind it. But I know Bernanke went over there a while ago, and I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't try to work out some scheme to dampen demand for gold. I don't know if it's going to work or not, because the Indians, they love their gold and the jewelry and all that sort of thing.
Well, somebody made an interesting point about that, and it's not that necessarily that they love the gold, they love the wealth
That's
that
right. The
and
image.
the image. That's
That's right.
right.
Yeah.
And if this piece of paper now can represent the same wealth that the gold represents, then they may move in that direction. That's still everything's still just kind of percolating at this point.
Absolutely.
And it's a concern. It's a concern of mine because when you start playing on people's greed, you have greed and fear, and when you start playing on people's greed and if they buy into it, then that could create some, that, to me, in my opinion, that could create some issues as far as gold demand.
Yeah, I'm just not on top of it yet. We'll just have to watch it as time goes by.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And what is your number one concern right now, Bill, as far as things that are happening with our world, with this flock of black swans that are out there flying around? What is your number one concern?
Well, you see the way I would look at it. The plunge protection team is always there supporting the stock market. We know what the gold cartel's doing to the gold market. The free markets aren't really functioning like they're supposed to be.
Right.
And it's been aborted. We know that the bond market, everyone knows that's manipulated. They kept interest rates low for so long. Of course, it hasn't been anything for gold. All this quantitative easing and monetary, the stimulus and other measures, gold and silver, the last 4 years have gone down as a result of it. So it's all because of the manipulation issue. But my biggest concern, I would think, for what's going on out there is all the derivatives are out there and counterparty risk in this kind of controlled environment. And if things start to break loose, which is probably why they're all over the gold and silver market, it could get a chain reaction, a nuclear kind of chain reaction, which could put the financial markets in chaos.
Do you think that the situation that's happening, that's unfolding as we speak in Europe with the refugees and now these various nation states stepping up and saying we don't want anybody? Do you see that playing a part in what you were just describing? Because if they start closing their borders and saying we're not taking anybody, then that creates issues, that creates much larger issues on the whole of Europe, and that gets into their economy and into their finances, into their financial system. And do you see any of that affecting what's happening right now?
It could be, but I think it's going to be something that we haven't even thought of that comes out of nowhere. It'll be something that's percolating behind the scenes right now, and all of a sudden it builds, and they can't stop it from getting this nuclear kind of reaction. And I will bet anything it's something that people hadn't thought of. I mean, even back when, nobody could contemplate Lehman Brothers blowing up.
Yeah, that's true.
And something like that then it feeds on itself.
Last question, and I'll let you get back to your evening. And I want to thank you very much for your
That's
time
good.
today.
Great being here. Good seeing you.
It's why do you do what you do? What made you? I know I have an idea of why you got into, why you created Gata and La Metropole Cafe. I understand that. Why do you continue doing it?
Well, we started it, and we thought it was the bullion banks controlling the market, and then we realized it was the BIS, Fed, the Treasury, the other people, and it keeps getting bigger, and it became the main feature in the market. Quite frankly, trying to expose this thing, which is I think will be the biggest financial scandal in U.S. history when it breaks, and not just because of gold, silver, but because of what they did, which allowed things to go out of disequilibrium and markets blew up. Everyone's going to want to know answers. How could this have happened? And a lot of it's going to go back to them rigging the gold and silver price. And since it's the biggest issue in the gold and silver markets, and I write about it and talk about it, and that's how I do my business at the Metropole Cafe, that uh, if you're going to do in the business, this is the thing that should be covered the most because it's the number one issue. Everything would be different without it. And so it became part of what I do for a living. And also the GATA thing became something in a crusade of sorts in the sense that we've had 4 international conferences and we met the most incredible people.
Yeah.
And through it, meeting people like yourself and Dave and it's just something that we do. And, it's become sort of a passion of Chris Powell's and mine, and we enjoy doing it, and eventually it's going to be quite something. And the other reason too is understanding it is one reason we stay with the gold and silver markets because it's been so terrible lately. But we know they've created these artificially low prices, and by understanding what's going on and what it's going to lead to, it's quite exciting.
What it's going to lead to. I've had the good fortune of interviewing Chris Powell, your partner, and his take on human sovereignty and liberty for all of humanity, tied back to gold and silver, and that is, to me, that's what GATA represents, and that's what you, Bill Murphy, represent as well. I mean, that's what, when I look at you and I read your work, that's what I see. I see people that are fighting not just these criminal banking cartels, but they're fighting for our sovereignty, because that's what it comes down to. I mean, that's the baseline of gold and silver. Our money, when our money and our currency have become this weapon of financial destruction that's used against us, that is the single greatest crime against humanity, in my opinion. And I'm very grateful that you guys are doing what you're doing. And I hope that we all live to see the day that we win. That
I was going to say, I hope the next time that we do an interview in person like this, that we're celebrating and not talking about what occurred versus what's coming down the pike.
Yes, that would be, nothing would make me any happier.
Me too.
Well, we've been speaking with Bill Murphy of GATA.org, and that's GATA.org, and LaMetropoleCafe.com. And Bill, tell them a little bit about La Metropole Cafe, because it's a subscription service, right?
Yeah, people can sign up for a 2-week free trial. I've been doing it since September of 1998, right before long-term capital management blew up, and write about the gold and silver markets and the financial markets, and have a lot of great contributors. And I said, as I mentioned, you can sign up for a 2-week free trial and see if it's of interest.
That sounds great, and please do. And there'll be a link to the site, to GATA, and to La Metropole Cafe in the description box. And thank you very much again, Bill, for all your time. I really appreciate it.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
All right, thank you.